Now, how did we get into this predicament? Let's rewind and I'll fill you in on all we know so far about the Valley. Before we begin, this is a trigger warning, and while I will not be showing this scene in this video, the game does display a brief depiction of transphobia, so I want you to be aware in case you decide to play the game for yourself. Now, let's get started. A beautifully illustrated visual novel by Zed and Alien, The Valley is about isolation, feeling like a social outcast, and, oh yeah, a really creepy plant. You play as a character who has always preferred isolation over company and conversation, unless those conversations are with plants. They've been your friends for as long as you can remember, and you can hear them the way no other person can. It's your first day as an assistant botanist for a mysterious biotech company. The facility you'll be working at is hundreds of miles away from the nearest town at the bottom of a valley. You smell asphalt in the valley even though there's no paved road to be found, and the facility is well hidden. You like how discreet it is and are looking forward to working in its greenhouse. After entering the facility and donning protective gear, you notice how lonely the place feels. But then you hear the plants, whispering to you from somewhere within. You're listening so intently to your new friends that you don't even realize your supervisor Ash is standing nearby. The conversation is mostly awkward as you have a hard time talking with others, but you do learn that there are many areas in the facility that are restricted to you. Ash encourages you to get settled in before beginning their illegible list of tasks. It doesn't matter in what order you visit the accessible areas, but if you enter your new office, there are a few clues to review before moving on. Your office has been scrubbed clean after the previous assistant left. Camellia, lily of the valley, and geranium seeds have been left in the trash can. The computer has been wiped clean with no internet access. There's also a map of the facility and a plant cell diagram on the wall, both of which we can't see as the player. We do learn by reviewing the diagram that your new job had very lenient requirements when compared to a normal botanist's job. There's a sketchbook left on your desk, and it's filled with detailed sketches of plants and flowers, most likely plants within the greenhouse. The sketchbook also has handwriting that is messy like ashes, but different enough that we know it's not the same. On a particular page, you see a drawing of a tree you've never seen before, with buds on the branches that resemble those of a dogwood tree, but the tree itself is very odd and almost looks to be kneeling. Within the lab, we learn you failed high school, but we also notice something odd in the room. There's an operating table in a lab meant for plant research. There's a quick interaction with Ash in which you mention a nearby plant is thirsty, and they humor you, watering the plant before returning to work and leaving you to continue exploring. Once you've reached the basement, there's an inexplicable pool to enter the restricted area. A pool that reminds you of the first time you talked to a plant, a flower in particular. However, your key card won't grant you access through the gate, and maybe that's not such a bad thing. Finally, you reach the greenhouse and you're excited to make new plant friends within. Once you enter, you're greeted by the sounds of many plants. But the plants are nervous. You listen, pull back the branches, and there sits a horrific sight. It's a person, but it's a plant too. Its voice static and wrong inside your brain. You understand that it wants help, that it's beckoning you to come closer. You don't realize how close you are to the plant until the void at its center seems to consume you. It's dark at first, but then you're reliving a memory. It's something painful from your past that's hard to see again. So you run into the darkness. You fall. You feel as if you've been swallowed by the ground, as if you're dying. You can't move. An explosion makes you jolt, and there's a scene you don't recognize. You hear someone crying, and when moving your body to try and find them, you awaken on the operating table of the facility, with Ash standing over you, holding a scalpel. With part 2 of the game said to be released later in the year, my mind is just going bananas with ideas about what's truly going on. Whether any of them are right or not is of course yet to be determined. For starters, your job is clearly a ruse to lure unsuspecting victims in for the plant. Typically, an assistant botanist would need a bachelor's degree or be taking courses in botany, but the main character has failed high school and notes the requirements for the job were really lax. The cleaning of your office suggests the facility is trying to remove evidence of the previous assistant being there. And as far as the sketchbook and seed packets left behind, I'm completely guessing here, but I wonder if Ash purposely left these items for you to find as a warning. We don't know if the facility is monitored by someone on the outside, nor the circumstances in which Ash found themselves working at the lab, but they are the only other human there, as far as we know. Maybe Ash doesn't want people to die, but is compelled to follow through with their job, either to rescue themselves, or maybe someone else. Ash sharing similar untidy handwriting with the previous assistant also seemed like an interesting detail to mention. If those similarities mean that Ash and the assistant are related or had similar personalities is honestly anyone's guess. Maybe they were twins, siblings, friends, or in a relationship? The messy writing could also just be something the developers decided on to avoid scripting unnecessary or unwanted information or clues, but I would love to hear what you think it means in the comments below. A quick dive into the game files reveals that the plant may be called the MetaFlora, which is what I'll refer to it as from now on to avoid confusion later. The MetaFlora seems to pull people in almost hypnotically, and once a person is close enough, they are entranced by the void, an empty space at the center of the tree which manifests their traumatic memories from the past. The MetaFlora seems to feed off this trauma and uses the energy from it to force its victim into eternal sleep, i.e., death. While the MetaFlora's voice is muffled by static, this was my best guess as to what it was saying when interacting with the player. Who are you? Let me return. Come closer. Hold me. So empty. Come closer. Come closer. Come closer. Let me return. If I'm right, then what could this mean? Is the MetaFlora asking to return to wherever it came from? Or is this the voice of its last victim, begging to return from the void? The MetaFlora's structure almost seems like a fusion between plant and person, and I don't know about you, but the head seems oddly familiar. Is the MetaFlora somehow a part of Ash, or is this all that remains of the last assistant botanist? The explosion we saw in the void could also be a memory of theirs. It looks like a war zone, but maybe it's a laboratory experiment gone awry. And though the assistant drew the greenhouse plants with great detail, the main character didn't notice a head present in the drawings. Could a lab explosion somehow have merged the assistant and MetaFlora together, and now the fusion feels empty and incomplete, needing someone to literally fill the void? Perhaps with souls? The presence of the operating table lets me know the plant doesn't eat people whole, or else Ash would have nothing to dissect. But it must do something to you on the inside. What exactly could Ash be looking for? And how can Ash retrieve the bodies from the greenhouse without being affected by the MetaFlora? I had some help isolating some of the vocals from the audio file that plays when the main character nears the MetaFlora. However, none of us are experts in audio mixing, and it was still pretty difficult to make out. While we couldn't hear much clearly, we did notice a series of numbers and layered dialogue. These are some of the fragmented phrases we thought we heard. I'd love to learn exactly what the audio says, but for now I can only guess why it sounds that way. If the assistant wasn't the MetaFlora's only victim, the layered dialogue could be multiple victims and their trauma whispering out to you from the void. The victims could be previous researchers from the facility, and the reason why only you and Ash are allowed to be there now. The basement is a mysterious location we don't have access to yet, but the developers provided solid clues as to what's behind the door. The pull the character feels lets us know it's a flower, and the flower from the opening screen might be the one. It looks like a lily of the valley, and the blossoms contain eerie shadows of people curled up inside. This makes me think the lily is a lot larger and maybe a lot more dangerous than the MetaFlora. Again, another look into the files, and we learn the developers titled the basement door as Lily, so another reason to expect it. But why is it separate from the other plants in the greenhouse? Is the lily what is emanating the asphalt-like smell you noticed in the valley? Some plants emit strong odors to attract pollinators and prey in the case of the Venus flytrap, and what if the lily has associated asphalt with civilization, hoping the smell will draw lost travelers in? And what is its connection to the MetaFlora? The figures within the blossoms don't appear to be in distress, but almost hibernating. It immediately conjures images of alien transportation pods, and now I'm wondering if the lily crash-landed here, forming the valley, and Ash and her friend, partner, or relative were passengers in the pods, and they were the only two survivors, building the facility to protect their ship and grow the plants from their world. They were nurturing the MetaFlora until it began to crave souls, and it absorbed the assistant, and am I just spiraling out of control here? I just really need answers, guys. Not saying the alien plant theory even has a shred of credibility, because I'm literally just basing it on the lilies looking like pods, the explosion image being the crash scene, my group and I possibly hearing "Look to the Stars," but if it did, it would help tie in some things about the main character. Maybe the main character is also from the same world as the lily. In their memory in the void, the phrasing suggests that their parents are not their biological family, when one states we've tried to love them as our own. It could also be more of a transphobic remark, but I don't want to leave the possibility out of them being adopted. So if they are adopted and don't know their real family, can speak to plants unlike other humans, feels like an outsider, and feels a strong pull towards the lily, maybe it's because they are in fact from another world but can't remember. I don't think Ash can communicate with plants because they didn't recognize the one in their lab wanted water like the main character did, but it could be a trait that only a few people from their world possess. Perhaps the assistant also had that ability. Within the script of the game, there is evidence to suggest that it was the assistant who gave Ash the seeds for the plant in their office, and their sketchbook suggests they too have a strong love for the plants in the greenhouse. The game script also lets us know that Ash has been working at the facility for a very long time and spends most of their time in the office with a sleeping bag and toothbrush found there. How long isn't really determined, but their dedication to their work again makes me think they are trying to save someone. So did the biotech company find these mysterious plants, lose a bunch of researchers to the MetaFlora, and force Ash to study them while they hope to secretly save their previous assistant? Or did the lily crash land to Earth and the alien plants get out of hand? Probably neither, honestly, but regardless, we'll have to wait until part 2 of the game to learn more. If you haven't played the Valley yet, I highly encourage you to do so and see what clues you can uncover so we can talk about it in the comments below. It's very beautiful, very well drawn, it really pulls you in with the atmosphere, and it's definitely worth playing through on your own for that first-person experience. And as always, if you liked this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and I'll see you next time. And as always, thanks for watching.